This episode of The Old Man and the Three is presented by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Welcome to The Old Man and the Three with JJ Reddick and Tommy Alter, brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 234. Jamal Mosley and Naz Reid. We recorded with Jamal Mosley the week between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs. Due to some scheduling stuff, we decided to hold it till after the first round. The Magic, of course, lost in Game 7. I called that game. They lost in Game 7 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But just a phenomenal season for the Magic. A lot to build on. And they have cap space going forward. They have draft assets. And they have two young studs in Banchero and Wagner. Jalen Suggs was one of the most improved players in the NBA and is just a massive defensive presence at the point of attack. A lot to look forward to. I found this conversation to be very enlightening and very insightful as to what it takes to be a coach in the NBA, particularly around taking over a young, rebuilding team. Jamal has just done an outstanding job. It's in a way I would describe it. It's different, of course, because Oklahoma City now is in a position to contend for a championship. But in a way, it's similar to Oklahoma City when Mark Daigneault took over, in that you're not going to win right away, but you still have the challenge of building a culture so that when you do have the right talent and the right growth, the culture is already in place. And Jamal Mosley has done that with the Orlando Magic.
As Magic fans are looking forward to this summer, what do you think? What do you think their biggest need is? What do you think the biggest addition? Not specific players, but just as like on a sort of larger level. What position do you think they need to fill?
It's interesting that so they were, I think, 24th in 3-point percentage this year. Shooting is an obvious need. Jeff Weltman in his press conference, his sort of exit press conference, talked about how I think they were 12th or 14th in 3-point percentage after January 1. We saw it in the playoffs. They still need more shooting. That's probably the biggest need for me. You would expect continued growth from Wagner and Banchero. And I would say this, I think with both those guys, and Banchero shot it well for most of that series from three against Cleveland. For both those guys, Wagner had a tough shooting season. He was actually the worst jump shooter in the entire NBA this season. He shot 29% on jump shots. His jump shooting and Banchero's jump shooting, particularly from three, I think elevates this team even further. And if you put more shooting around them, there's a lot to like about the future with the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, you mentioned OKC, but with OKC and Minnesota as well, the value for young teams and having playoff experience, even if you don't win, just going to a Game 7 for the first time.
I think it's important to understand what the playoffs is. It's so interesting. We had some time. We don't always get a player when we broadcast the game. We don't always get a player, but a lot of times we get players off camera. And Evan Mobley, we had him on Sunday prior to our meeting with the two coaches, with Mosley and Bickerstaff. And Mike Breen asked Evan Mobley about what he learned from last year compared to coming in this year for his second playoff run. And it's interesting because he came out and flat out said, I didn't realize how intense it was. I didn't realize how physical it was. I knew it was going to be different. I knew it was going to be more intense, but I had no idea the level of intensity that is required to play in the playoffs. And the Magic, all those guys went through a very tough series. They faced some adversity getting down 2-0. They had an elimination game in Game 6 where they had to win. And then, they put themselves in a position, some poor shooting and some turnovers in the second half. They put themselves in a position to win a Game 7 on the road. Those are valuable learning experiences for any young team. We've got a great episode with Mosley. We also have a check-in with Naz Reid. The Timberwolves are up 2-0 against the Denver Nuggets. Before we get to Mosley and Naz Reid, let's do our DraftKings Sportsbook segment, and I want to touch on the topic of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
What is there to say right now about this team overall and then also this defense? And we knew, we talked with Rudy right before the playoffs started about just how good this defense is, but are you even a little bit surprised at just how dominant they've been over 5 games or over 6 games at this point?
No, I'm not. And in particular, I'm not surprised that they're up 2-0 in this series. if you go back to last week, during our DraftKings Sportsbook segment, we'd spent a little bit more time than usual in that segment breaking down this particular matchup. And all the things we talked about have come to a sort of bite the Nuggets. So I'm not surprised. The defense, is built on having multiple wing defenders and size underneath. And that's not a great matchup for the Denver Nuggets. It just isn't. And it's so funny because we went through the odds last week. Denver, prior to this series, was obviously favored to win the series. They were favored to win the NBA championship. And if you look now, the Minnesota Timberwolves have the best odds to win the Western Conference right now at plus 100. Denver has the worst odds to win the Western Conference at plus 650, even going to championship. Think about this. 2 games later, Denver, the favorite to win the NBA championship as of 2 weeks ago, now are 6th at plus 1,200. It's amazing what can flip. Now, do I think Denver can still win this series? Yes, absolutely. But it's going to require, I think, a few things.
Is Minnesota doing anything different, particularly with the split cut defense that you've seen? I'm just thinking about, obviously they've been picking up from 94 feet, which is a pain in the ass. But is there anything in terms of just like in the first 2 games, Murray's obviously been frustrated. He's probably lucky to be playing in game 3. Is there anything they've been doing strategically that you've seen that you feel like particularly, flummoxed them?
Well, it all starts with ball pressure. I don't want to go into the stats to bore you, but essentially, Jamal Murray has faced more ball pressure than in any other game this season in game 2. So the pickup point, a lot of times it's full court, it's harassment. That disrupts the offense. At times, Murray is getting sped up. I don't want to bore you with the stats on that, but the stats back that up. At times, he's getting sped up and just not getting into their sets with their normal flow. So that's part of it. And then trying to, I guess, solve for Denver the Aaron Gordon spacing issue when you can put size on Jokic and have Gobert off of him, or as in game 2, you can put size on Jokic and have Naz Reid on Gordon, right? The advantage that Denver has so often created is having smaller players on Gordon, forcing essentially the Jokic matchup to be a one-on-one game. If they do help, Gordon cleans up in the dunker spot. So even in the split games, because of the ball pressure, they're just not getting into a lot of good action out of that. They're not creating separation. They're doing a tremendous job of switching, and they have multiple switching defenders. It is a swarming defense, and it's one of the most impressive things that I've seen. Saw something on Twitter today that was really interesting. I can't remember who said it. I always want to credit people when they say something interesting on Twitter. They likened the Timberwolves defense this year to the Warriors offense in 2015, essentially saying this defense is a little bit ahead of where the Warriors offense relative to the rest of the league. That offense was ahead of the rest of the offense in the NBA in 2015.
Well, that's interesting. Do you feel like a lot of people, rightfully so, have been giving Tim credit for building these 2 organizations? Do you feel like this is now the future of NBA defense, at least for the foreseeable future? Building in this style?
So I as Channing said yesterday on the Road Trippin' podcast, I don't want to be a prisoner of the present.
Yeah.
It's actually a prisoner of the moment. Again, it's 2-0 in the Western Conference semifinals. So that remains to be seen. But I think you can sort of look at a template of what they've built. Having 3 true big men that are rotation caliber, impactful players. Look, I've also reflected on some of the commentary I had around this trade. And a lot of people kind of went overboard, said it was the worst trade in NBA history. I never went that far. I brought this up multiple times last year, solving sort of the spacing issue. Mike Conley being there, getting him at the trade deadline. They were a different team at the end of last season than they were for most of last season. It's clear that he knows how to facilitate, run an offense, get people in the right spots, make threes. His spacing is so important. So that's part of it. I think Cat, too, having a year where he was hurt most of last season with the calf injury, but then sort of figuring out a new position, particularly defensively, and having to move around more and not just be a 5-man and be in drop coverage all the time. He's grown defensively, so that's been huge. And then just naturally, right? We said this when you had Minnesota, I think number 1 in the West
last year.
Last year when we did our preseason
Just
predictions.
Jaden was that's been the one guy that I've been been on.
But we talked about this then. It's like with any young team like this, it's like if your young star has growth and takes a leap and becomes one of the best players on the floor every single night, then that's the key.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards has been that. So it's not, hey, the Gobert trade worked. Hey, 9 other things happened.
Yeah.
It requires so much. And we spent time with Chris Finch going into last season. We did our interview with him in August. We released it right around Labor Day. And, he talked about trying to problem solve all of these things.
Well, the guy who I remember when you were in New Orleans, you had a very close relationship with, I wanted to ask about in terms of growth. And this is almost getting back to the Orlando conversation about culture, is Nickeil in particular. It didn't feel like he was a great defensive player in New Orleans. Like that just wasn't his thing. I mean, he's a super gifted scorer. He did a lot of things right, but he wasn't necessarily known as like a lockdown defender. And so do you feel like, obviously, the huge amount of credit to him for turning himself into where he is now, but that's also just on the rest of the organization in terms of getting him into that place and turning him into a guy that is literally locking up Jamal Murray while smiling, going 94 feet down the court?
I think there's two factors here for Nickeil. Number one, he comes in the NBA. His cousin is SGA. His cousin is this dynamic scoring guard, number 1 option. There's certainly the pressure on a young player to try to emulate that, right? And that's not who he is. The second thing is he bounced around. Like, think about it. He was traded 1, 2, 3 times, all while essentially on his rookie contract.
Yeah.
So when those things happen, your mindset changes and it becomes a matter of survival. It becomes a matter of where can I fit in? Where can I make an impact? It's complete buy-in defensively from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he's become a tremendous point of attack defender, tremendous perimeter defender. Last thing I want to say, because this was a talking point all season with the Minnesota Timberwolves, we talked about their offense, right? They were league average to slightly below league average offensively. They played 6 playoff games. Denver was a top 10 defense. Phoenix was not. But through 6 playoff games, they have a 120.8 offensive rating, which is number 1 in the playoffs. So
it's a pretty tough combo.
Their execution on both sides of the ball has been tremendous. Going back to the odds real quick, because I want to mention this. And I know over the next couple of weeks, we'll be spending a bunch of time on the Thunder, Mavs, Knicks, Pacers, all this stuff. Monday's show, Old Man, the Three Things. We'll be touching on all this stuff. I just want to go through the odds real quick for NBA championship. Boston, they're the favorites, plus 105. Then Minnesota at plus 320. Then OKC at plus 700. Then the Knicks at 950. Dallas at plus 1100. Denver at plus 1200. So clearly the odds makers think Denver Nuggets have a very difficult uphill climb, going down 2-0, losing 2 games at home to start a series. We are releasing this Friday. Tonight, Friday night, I'm speaking in the future. Tonight will be game 3, and I cannot wait to see the atmosphere for that game. One little nugget about this game. Denver at Minnesota, game 3, electric atmosphere, going to be amazing. I'm sure they'll announce it today. If not, they maybe already announced it yesterday. But the color analyst for that game will be Tim fucking Legler. I will be tuning into that. I cannot wait to hear Legler on the call for that game. This has been our DraftKings Sportsbook segment. Happy Threes Day. You can earn a bigger bonus bet with every three made in an NBA game when you place a pregame first three-pointer bet on any Tuesday or Thursday game of your choice. Just opt in, place a qualifying bet, and for every three that's hit, you stand to score a bigger bonus bet. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code JJ when you place an NBA pregame first three-pointer bet on any game of your choice today. That's code JJ only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. One token per customer. Pre-game first three-point bet required to earn credit for reward for each three-pointer scored in the game. Minimum bet and max reward varies. Tokens expire at the start of the final NBA game each day when offered. Reward issued as one bonus bet that expires 168 hours after issuance. All right, let's get to our conversation with Orlando Magic head coach Jamahl Mosley, who, by the way, finished in second place for Coach of the Year voting. This is just a fascinating conversation. Let's go. We were only around each other 2.5 months, but I feel like there's...
Is that all it was?
That's all it was, man.
It felt like
that's all
longer.
it was. It felt like longer. You know what's wild to me?
Yeah.
Because I called Dallas last night. Right.
Okay.
And, I see Casey number 2. I see Jeremy, and like, obviously the staff's gone, but some of the players are still there.
Right.
I talked to Jalen, probably Brunson once a week. Right.
Yep.
I played 8 games for you guys.
It felt like a lot more than 8 games. I can tell you that right now. That's a good thing though.
It is a good thing. And you've obviously moved on. There's something very specific about that time period that I really enjoyed. And that was you and Luka's interactions. So you were like his on-court guy.
Yeah.
Post practice, pregame shooting, you guys would do your one-on-one thing.
Yep.
If Luka was actually trying, because you guys would fuck around, but if Luka was actually trying and he had 5 possessions, do you feel like you could get a stop right now?
The ego of me would say yes. The reality is saying no.
Okay.
Reality. No,
that's fair.
Like on the block, maybe one. If you
can get him to shoot like a tough turnaround.
He'd shoot the bank shot. He'd go one leg up, bank shot. He'd hit you with a dirk and then say, can't stop me. That would be one, maybe.
Okay. We didn't talk about when we were together, and obviously you and I have maintained a relationship since I retired and you've gotten the Orlando job, but I've never asked you about, the time in Denver when Melo was there, and obviously you had this very close relationship with Luka.
Mm-hmm.
What did that time period, specifically with Luka, teach you about coaching stars?
A big portion of it was the human side. I think people forget that a lot of times, is that they get caught up in, he's the star, he's this, but they just want to be who they are, right? And they need people around them that can treat them just as who they are. And that was big with Luka. Like he was a young man from Slovenia that had played overseas early on and then came in, and then he just wanted to be like normal. And I think that's what it taught me a lot, was just being around him, that, when he was on the court, he had fun. He played with joy, had enjoyed being around his teammates, being around his friends. And then when he got on that, between those lines, that competitor kicks in. But for the most part, when it's not that, just being Luka, that was big for me, seeing that and understanding that part of him, but also how he saw the game was entirely different. Right. And he just, his mind, I mean, you were around him for those moments, but the way he sees the game it's even hard, it seems like at time, for him to describe, because he's just painting a picture the entire time.
Yes. It's interesting you say that because we've had him on this podcast a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him in private, for months. And I've certainly had a bunch of conversations with him as not as a teammate in private.
Right.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of the greatest players, the best players, they do have a hard time describing what they see.
Yeah.
And Luka always says, it's not easy. It's not easy. But in a way, it's natural.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense.
Can you as a coach, for someone who maybe it's not as natural, whether it's Paulo or Franz or anybody else that you've coached in your career, can you help them make it easier?
Yes. And I say that because a lot of these guys already have a feel, right? So then you start to put the structure of what a situation is. And once you've seen that situation 100 times, whether that's in practice, then it becomes the feel on top of the read, on top of where defenses are. Now you can start to place it together. That's, I think, a big portion of it. But I like the ones that have that mind that just is so creative. It's hard to pinpoint those guys because there's something about it. They're artists.
They're artists. I was just going to say that.
They're artists. And when you have an artist, it's like you can give them a framework of things like, here's what's coming. And they paint the masterpiece.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you did start as a player development coach.
Yeah.
And now you're a head coach. Mm-hmm. And I was talking with someone last weekend about this, about player development in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And player development, when I first got in the league, was very much about individual skill work. You know what I mean? It was like you had, and the staffs at the time, there was two guys. There was two player development guys. Yeah. And after practice, before practice, especially as a young player, you were with your guy. I was with Mo Wiley. And Mo was great. I don't know if you know Mo?
I don't know Mo. I don't know Mo.
Mo was great with me. But we worked on my handle. Yep. We worked on certain shots. We worked on, of course, like my spot shots and pin downs. And this is back when I was bouncy. We would work on backdoor lobs. I swear to God.
Whoa.
We would work on backdoor lobs.
Okay.
But what we didn't work a ton on is the thing you're describing earlier. The in-game situations.
Yeah.
How have you seen the player development side of coaching evolve in the NBA in your 15, I should say now it's 19 years, right? 19 years in the NBA?
Coaching? Like that. Yeah. I lose track all the time. I know it's like Melo's second year and then it goes by so fast. But it's changed to what now has become about decision-making. How do I make the best decisions in certain situations? And that is what is getting guys better, that they can read the game. It's ball handling still. It's still spot shots. It's still one dribble pull-ups, dropping your shoulders, being low, the low man wins. All those things all take place still. But now it's like, okay, now I got to learn how to read the low man. Now I got to see, is it a high tag? Is it a low tag when I come off the pick and roll? All those things are now baked into the workouts because it's part of offense, because you want guys to be able to feel the game and play within flow versus running a play. And I think that's what's so important, because it's now everything's in, there's a rhythm to games now. And as guys can find that rhythm, it makes it easier for the team to flow together.
Yeah, what you're describing is the read aspect. Really, a lot of player development, let's be honest, is on the offensive side of the ball. There's certainly player development on the defensive side of the ball. And I've seen coaches that drill certain situations and certain scenarios on that side of the ball. I know early in my career, even like I had to really work on understanding when I was the low man and when I had to tag. And I did it fucking over and over and over again with Stan until it became second nature. And that's what you're describing right now. Is within the flow. Not a set play necessarily, but within the flow of a game, the reads just become natural. How much are you and your staff, I should say, because it's not just you're not necessarily just you, but you guys, your staff, how much are you drilling screening angles, ghost screens,
Mhm.
actions against switches to exploit those so it doesn't disrupt that flow?
Our staff, we do it every pregame, every game. The guys are doing that individual work beforehand. And it's a lot of it is baked into what we're going to see that night. If we know a team is in coverage, all right, then we're working on things that puts them in coverage. You're putting a guy, sealing him off, holding him off. Now I can cut back and finish on the other side of the rim. It's all those little things that we do hone in on, particularly for games, and in particular for a certain game. But when we first started and the games weren't going, it's all of that. It's all the little different angles. If we know a team switching, we're setting that low angle so they can't get underneath it. If we know that they mess up switches with communication, that ghost screen is right there. Now, if they're chasing over the top, we got to change the angle so my butt is to the baseline. He's got to chase over the top so I can get downhill. All of those things we bake in so then by the time we've gotten into the year, this is what we're doing for this particular game, so we've done it already.
There's certain coaches that and it's a handful of guys that get to go right to the head coaching position. There's certain coaches that have started in the film room, and I really truly believe there's an advantage. There's an advantage to that as a coach. There's other guys like you, player development to assistant to head coach. Some guys maybe get front of bench right away, go straight to a head coach. Like there's a different path for everyone.
Yeah.
In your experience and everything you've seen in this league, do you have certain keys for what makes a good player development coach, a good assistant coach, and even now a good head coach? Like, do you look at it all the same? Is there commonalities between the three? Are there differences between the three?
I think for me, it was the development helped in so many ways because it became what this league in so many ways is about. It's about the players. It's about getting them to become the best version of themselves. So when you are on court teaching and talking and communicating and develop the relationship with them through time on the court and off the court, that helps you understand what their needs are. And then you're breaking down film anyway with the development. So you're studying the heck out of the game. So you know the ins and outs, where their moves are made, how they're going to make them on certain guys, certain teams, whether it's a double team, whether it's, isolation situation, you're helping them become their best. So you're studying video just the same. I think the development allows guys to see it from the player's eyes. And if you played, it helps even more. Whatever level you played, I think it helps you see the game from that light. Because a lot of times, if you just study film, you lose the human aspect. And I think if you go too far there, guys don't view it that way. But there's benefits on all sides to me, because you have to do all of it. I think
you have to do all of it.
I think you have to do film. You have to do video room. I think you have to do scouting. You have to do on court. You have to be able to touch all of those pieces to understand everyone's job. To become a head coach, you should be able to understand everyone's job within your organization.
Right. There's a holistic nature to being a head coach.
Yes.
And I could go in so many different directions here, but I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to choose this one for now. The holistic approach, right? And you've used the word human twice now, which I greatly appreciate. There's probably a perception that being a head coach is mostly, now I think most fans know it's not all about X and O's, right? But there is this dichotomy with coaching at any level, I think, but particularly in the NBA. It's the emotional side, the EQ side, and the relationship side versus the tactical, intellectual, I would call it intellectual side. There's an intellectual side of coaching. That's the X's and O's. That's the tactical nature of it. And then there's the human side of it, the EQ, the emotional side of it. And you and I, we had this conversation like a month ago on the phone.
Yep.
We were talking about this Mike McDaniel interview. And by the way, I saw it was like 2 weeks after I talked to you, I saw Mike. He was at a Heat game.
Okay. Yep.
And I went up to him and I said, I listened to this interview you did last fall.
Yes.
And you said, I don't work in the sports industry. I work in the service industry, and my job is to serve the players. And when I talked to you about this, I felt like it really hit a nerve with you.
It's the truth. It is the truth. And he said it's best when he described it as these guys have a short window to make it for their family, for themselves, to see if they can be. And it's our job as coaches to put them in the best possible position to become successful. And because of experience, you want to give them the experience of those that have come before them, those that have come before me, because someone helped me and helped me see it. So being able to help these young men find the best version of themselves on and off the court is our job. And that's the most important thing for me with these guys. And that's going to take, the tactical side. That takes us X's and O's. What position puts, where's Paolo best on the floor? Where's Franz best on the floor? Where should I put Jalen? Those are all tactical pieces, which understood. But also, okay, what level do they need to see it from the human side with their teammate? That's another side, right? That's the portion that we got to keep looking at and viewing to make sure they all understand it as best as possible.
I told you this, and I want to say it. I want to say it publicly. Yep. I do want to say it publicly. And recently, actually, LeBron said this about players and their careers.
Yeah,
is like what is a good career? What is a successful career? And I had to grapple with this when I retired because I didn't win a championship, and that was sort of my marker of a successful career. And one of the things I was proud of, and it's something LeBron said, he said, a successful career is you maximize your career. You maximize the skills you have, the natural talents you have. And I looked back on my career and I said, I felt like I maximized what I was given. And I have a negative wingspan. I relative to NBA players, I'm not that athletic. Like all these things. I had to figure out a way to maximize my career. And I said this to you, and I'm gonna say this on air. I feel like the mark of a good coach at any level, but particularly in the NBA, is that he maximizes his players and he maximizes the group. And I feel like you've done that. And as Spo once said to me, all of this shit is more art than science.
The truth. That is the truth right there. That is Spo's right on that one. He's spot on with that one. You just want and I can't describe it and say it enough of you just want the best for these guys. You want them to be as successful as they can be because everybody can't be LeBron. Everybody can't be a Luka. Everybody can't be a Joel Embiid. But in your role for what you're going to do to establish who you are in the NBA, can you be the best version of that? That's it. I think how do you find that is also knowing how you fit that particular team where you are and find that role for that moment. I remember talking to Chauncey years before he got into the league, and I would watch him play in the summer. And I'm like, dang, Chauncey people forget what he could do just as the individual skill set, shooting, playing, like crushing people. And then he got to Detroit and he just ran the team. And he'd always say, it's summer Chauncey, the season Chauncey. And that's the major difference that guys, you want them, he helped me understand that. You can work on, like you guys talk, I remember you guys talking about the bag. You can work on the bag, but like when it comes to doing what's necessary for my team, what's necessary for me to get the best out of myself in this situation and for my team.
Yeah, it's important to work on the bag.
Yeah.
Right? It's important to work on the bag, but there's a difference between the bag and utilizing the bag within the framework of benefiting the team.
Yes.
There's a big difference. I in some ways I had to understand that, but it was fairly easy for me because I was limited, right? Kyrie and I joked about this one time.
You said you had the ball handle. You didn't work on you didn't have a bag?
No, I worked on the ball handle all the time. Kyrie and I joked about this one time. I was like, bro, you put me in a summer workout and I'm fucking doing ball handling drills and like, damn, I wish I didn't videotape my workouts like some guys. So JJ's got a handle. No, but within the framework of a game, that's not who I was. That wasn't good for the teams I played on. I wasn't going to be a high usage guy. So yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. But there's an interesting thing here. with this whole conversation about maximizing the player, maximizing what the player's role is for that group, and that is actually getting buy-in. And I think that's the challenge as a coach. How do you go about communicating roles, empowering certain guys to have bigger roles maybe than they had before? Like, how do you get buy-in from players?
It's everyone. And so before I even go into what we do, I talk about our player development staff, our front office, our coaches. Like, everyone is helping the young men see exactly what they're capable of being. But you also have to sit down and talk to them and say, what do you want to do and be for the next 2 or 3 years? Because the guy's going to say, I want to come in, I want to average 22, 10, and 5. Okay. What does that look like? What does that look like within this team? And then, so now you break it down. What bodies of work do you have to go through, and what do you need to put yourself through and ask the coaches to put you through in order to get to that? And does it fit with exactly what we're doing? And so, knowing you want to help them reach their maximum potential, how do you help them talk about, okay, well, here's how we're going to play. And if we play this way, here's where your spots, here's where you'll get shots, here's where this is all of the things that you need to do in order to get to what you want, but it's also helping the team. So it's both parties benefit because you're helping them reach their maximum potential on top of our team's potential.
No, I totally get that. I mean, I'm not saying that you do this, but I think there is a danger at times because I've been in this world now for 18 years, and I still talk to people, and I hear things where a player or a coach will say, I want to be like so-and-so. I think there's value in studying how certain guys operate in pick and roll, studying off-ball movement. Like, if I'm a player that is an off-ball player right now, I'm watching Sabonis and Herter and Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox run their DHO action. And then I'm implementing that in player development. But there is a danger, I think, in the comparison piece where a player or a coach says, you should be him. That's not maximizing you. That's trying to be someone else.
Exactly right.
So then if that player is an all-NBA player and you're not, is that, you a failure? But you see it happen all the time.
I've had to catch myself. And I said this to someone the other day about P, because he's his own. Yeah. He's going to create his own everything. And that's what is so great about him being a willing learner and a student of the game. He takes pieces, but he's going to create who he is. The same, like Franz is the same, Jalen's the same. All our young guys, Cole, they're all taking pieces from other people. And so I think when you can do that to be the best version of you, taking those pieces, you don't have to compare yourself to the person or the people. You just take aspects of the games and make it your own. And that's how you maximize it.
Yeah. It was interesting talking to Franz. I really felt like that's what he does, right? He was talking about his use of second spectrum. It was one of my favorite moments we've had on any episode of any podcast. And I was like, specifically, what are you doing? And he's talking about how Jimmy Butler gets to the free throw line or how a certain player operates in space. And it's just like, yes, that is the right way of thinking about this. I want to go back because you played high-level college basketball. You played professionally, overseas. You had some game. You had a bag.
I had a little bit. A little bit.
The motivation for you to get into coaching, how your motivations around coaching have evolved, your viewpoints around coaching, how have they evolved as well?
Well, initially, first of all, my motivation has always been about helping people become the best version of themselves. That's it. So that's always been the case, whether I was in high school, on my team, college, pro, I always wanted to help people become better. So that was it. The side that has come now from when I first started was in Denver. I didn't know that I wanted to do it. right? So it wasn't like I jumped right into it. My mom had passed away the year before, and I was searching to try to find what to do. George Karl got the job in Denver. I had known John Welch and Tim Gergerich, and they groomed me into what it was, like what real player development was, the on court, the hours spent, the time when they call you, pick up the phone, you're going back to the gym at 1:30 in the morning, getting shots up, playing one-on-one over and over and over again to help these guys become the best version of themselves. And that view for me has not changed. Like, it's still about that. Now it's just in the context of how do we do that and maximize these guys' potential within the, in what we're doing as a group, and help them understand it's about the group.
That's interesting. Was there not a
aha moment?
Yeah, I think, but no, because I think there's, I think everybody has motivations, and everybody has goals.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between like the player development side and being groomed for that, and eventually being capable of being a high level NBA coach. Yeah. And so there's got to be, like, did you set out to be a head coach? Did you have an aha moment of, oh shit, that's what I want to be someday?
Well, it's interesting. With Gerg, he would always challenge me and test me. Like, if you really want to do this, here's what it takes. And so there were levels. There's always levels. So then you want to move to the front of the bench because you see everybody move. Your friends are all in the industry. They're moving to the front of the bench. You're like, I want to get to the front of the bench. And then you get to the front of the bench and the game's a little faster up there, right? Because it's real time. And then you get to the front of the bench. You're like, okay, I want an assignment. I want to take the defense. I want to be a defensive coordinator, whatever that means, taking the next step up. And the thought process of becoming a head coach was that there was some motivation to do it. But then I started realizing, and players say it all the time, and being a star in my own role, whatever it was in the moment that I was in, be that. Because as you go through interviews and teams are like, no, not what we're looking for, not what we're looking for. You're like, okay, let me just be still in where I am and be great at this moment. Just like we ask our players to do, be in this moment. You're not going to be the you 3 years from now. Be the you right now. And that's what I had to settle into.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. The first game I was ever with Dallas. So I after All-Star break, I played leading into All-Star break. My last game with New Orleans, we played Chicago. We had a game the next night. And I was dealing with this Achilles injury. And throughout that season, because I was compensating so much because I couldn't load that foot, I would basically have these like random hamstring strains. So I wake up after the Chicago game and I'm like, I told Stan, I was like, I can't play, dude. My hamstring is so tight. I went out to try to warm up. I took 2 shots. I said, nah, it's not going to work. I tried to do a side step 3 and I was like, nah, not going to work. Can't go guard somebody right now. Not that I was good at that anyways at that stage. But
defender.
Yeah. So I go back to New York. I go see O'Malley. I was like, I don't want to get surgery. I want to try to get the season done, try to make it through the season. So I do PRP and I just rehabbed in New York. I get traded. You guys happen to be playing the New York Knicks. So I said, I'll just join the team. It was a week or so after I got traded. I'll just join the team when you guys are in New York, and then I'll start traveling with you guys. And Rick got COVID. He tested positive for COVID on the day of the game.
That's right.
So you step in.
Yeah.
But mind you, I don't know you. I don't know half these guys. You step in, I'm over there in street clothes and I'm observing things. I'm like, yeah, Mose is going to be a head coach. Like, he's got it. Like, it was very obvious. You know what I mean? And it's all the things you're talking about. But for you, there had to have been some, oh shit, this is different type revelations between being a high-level assistant coach for a number of years and then moving into a head coaching role. What were the biggest surprises, challenges, revelations about that role versus an assistant coaching role?
It was the opinion versus the final decision. I think as an assistant, you're constantly throwing out opinions of what you should and could do. And then you're looking at the head coach sometimes like, well, why aren't we doing that? And there's information that the head coach has that helps make the final decision with all of it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is recognizing that final decision, there's more information on my plate to be able to make those decisions. And so that was one piece. And then the being able to be a great representative of an organization.
Yeah.
That's what I think sometimes you don't recognize as being assistant, that you're representing more than just you. You're representing, the entire organization, city, the ownership, president, every time they see you're representing everyone. And so I think being able to understand that responsibility is very big, because everybody has the ambition to do, I want to do these X's and O's. I want to have the relationship with the players. But there's a lot more to it, that you want to bring everyone together. That's a big key.
Did Rick ever warn you about that aspect of being a head coach?
Rick was great. And that's why for me, he gave so many pieces of like what it was. He was always very truthful and honest in situations that whether he faced or that he had seen early on, he gave those little nuggets. But a lot of times when you're just ambitious and you're trying to star in that role, you're looking at it, but it's hard for you to see until you're there. I mean, I always, you equate it somewhat to being a father. Everyone can tell you what it's like to be a dad and have kids till you have them, right? It's
you
different.
Don't know until you know.
and a lot of it is just continuing to learn as you go on. That's why I really try to lean in on the players, on our staff. To me, our staff is fantastic. Being able to really have conversations with them about everything that they see, because you can't get too far away from it. You can't.
Rick was great with me. We spent some time together when I was there. We've talked since, and that was the one thing that like really stood out that he said to me. He said, being a head coach in the NBA is a privilege because you are a representative of everyone. Like, I don't think we all grasp that. You're representing the city of Orlando. Mm-hmm. You're representing Orlando Magic fans literally all over the world.
We have phenomenal fans, by the way. So
yes. Yes. I know. I played there 7 years.
I know you know that, and it's an honor to be able to do it. And I think that's the side where you have to have the gratitude and the appreciation for what it is.
Despite the fact that the NBA told officials to allow a lot of fouling post All-Star break.
Really?
Yeah, it's public, Jamal. Come on, man. It's public now. Adam Silver admitted it. We all knew it. I mean, I remember calling my first game after All-Star break, and I was like, oh, because you don't quite appreciate it on television when you're watching film or watching a game live.
Yeah.
And then you're up close. Like the first game I called, I was like, this is different. Like it was obvious.
Love it.
But despite that, like teams are still scoring. Teams are still scoring. It's still high octane offense. How do you go about building the foundation? You guys have been top 5 defense pretty much the whole season. Mm-hmm. How do you go about building the foundation? I want to talk about personnel in a second, but the foundation of a great modern NBA defense.
It starts with positions, right? Understanding positional defense. I think that's one piece we use, but the other side is how much you can grab, hold, adjust what teams are doing offensively to disrupt ball pressure. I think that's the key. Like how much can you get into that ball? Because it's like that quote, everybody has a plan till they get hit in the mouth. It's the same thing. Everybody can think they can run a set 5-on-0. It's different when you got somebody bumping you off your route or grabbing you to come off that pin down. It's different. So what you can do there is a big key. And I think that's what we continue to teach with the ball pressure, high hands, impacting shots. And then our analytic team does a tremendous job of saying and talking about what's sustainable. What can you do with who you have, right? Are you a great defensive rebounding team? Because that's one thing that leads into being a great defensive overall team. How much do you impact shots? Can you fly around multiple efforts? All those little pieces, is that sustainable? And what we did at I give our analytic team so much credit of what we were able to do as we were building. These type of guys can do this, and it's multiple efforts, it's ball pressure, it's flying around, and then it's boxing out. All the little small details that they've been talking about since elementary are all the things.
On the analytics side, do you feel like you have to, because there's this, I'm going to ask this question in a second, but there's this thing that I hear coaches talk about all the time. It's mostly when they talk about a Jokic or a Luka, right, or a LeBron or a Steph, right? What are you willing to live with?
Mm-hmm.
But as you're thinking about the personnel you have and working alongside the analytical team, are there certain indicators, markers, stats that you're like, well, we have to sell out to this. We have to sell out to protecting the paint. Mm-hmm. We have to sell out to limiting corner threes. Like what are those things that your team has done really well?
Well, we were protecting the paint has been one. And then we went last year, we struggled defending the corner three, where we have improved there. Defensive rebounding is another one. I think that stays the same. But what we've done is it's been more like the impacting of shots. How much can you contest a shot every time it goes up? Second jumper off the ground or flying guys, getting to their bodies, getting them inside the 3-point line. Those small pieces have changed the way in how we're able to do things.
Here's the thing. You're not going to stop a team.
Correct.
And you're not going to stop great players. You're just not. What you're talking about is really interesting because I think it's recognizing that the task is impossible, but then recognizing there are certain margins we can create. Mm-hmm. I remember, my second year is when Stan joined, and he had Cliff on the bench, Bob Byer, Patrick Ewing, Brendan Malone, rest in peace, Coach Mike Malone's father. We had that same staff for 5 years, and this is pre-Second Spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd meander back sometimes to the coaching section to talk to them on the team playing after games, and they'd be watching film, and they had these spreadsheets. They were doing it manually, right? They didn't have the computers and the tracking and all that, and they would do it manually. And I remember they would talk. They would talk about the contest piece a lot. They would, and they would have like 3 different columns for contest: no contest, poor contest, good contest. Right. And there are teams that give up a lot of threes attempts, and teams shoot bottom 5 in the NBA versus them.
Yep.
Because of exactly what you're talking about. It's like, okay, we're going to protect the paint, but then we have to haul ass to either run people off the line or get what is considered a good contest.
That's exactly right. I think that's been key for us because we do have the length, we do have the size, we do have the ability to do it, and we have guys that play with multiple effort. And I remember Mike Brown used to say it all the time when I first got multiple efforts. That was big. Like when I was in Denver, the word they used was scramble, right? You got to just scramble. You're flying around. It's not a perfect science. And so that taught a lot early on. In the way that you have to play, because you can have your scheme, but great players are going to break it. So what do you do to disrupt the great player? It's physical. It's getting into the ball. It's just making them a little bit more uncomfortable in that shot than they'd like to be.
I don't want to shortchange anyone on your roster. Okay. But you do have 2 elite defenders. Agreed. Maybe you have more in your estimation. But Jalen and Jonathan they're fucking elite defenders.
Elite.
Jalen in particular because look, Jonathan is I mean, he's a massive human being with long wingspan who can move his feet, right? It's he's like one of one, right?
IQ, defensive basketball
Yeah.
IQ, incredible.
With Jalen, how much are you coaching instinct? Do you know what I mean by that?
I know exactly what you mean. It's
Yeah.
you let him be him, right? And let him, there's moments where he's going to just make a play. You have to allow that. And he's done it time and time again, where he just has a feel and a read for things, but also helping him understand in this moment of the game, maybe not now. And so he's learned and gotten so much better over time of knowing when and where he can pick and choose. And he is high level. He's first team all defense to me. The way in which he goes about guarding guys, disrupting guys, the angles he takes, the way he knows a guy's movement, active hands. Some of it's the football in him that he doesn't mind physical. And so, but his anticipation is really good. I compared it the other day to how Drew is.
You know what's so funny?
Yeah.
When I asked the question, I was thinking of Drew.
And Drew has now, the way he just knows where you're going to be, how physically he can be with you. I think there was an article that he talked about that how he can be have teams switch him onto a big, and the big thinks it's a mismatch, and it's nowhere near a mismatch because he gets right, grabs your hip, shifts you out different angles. Jalen is similar there in how he's able to anticipate getting through screens. He gets thin, he gets through. And he doesn't do it with the old school big one-step slide. He's like thin, bumping you off your route, and I'm still in my same stance.
Yeah. It's interesting. Jalen, of course, has had some highlight type athletic plays, like when we think of the vertical plane, right? Both those guys, and they're different. They're insane athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Holiday, I'm sure he's dunked on someone, but I can't think of like a crazy, traditional athletic play that he makes, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got him in his career.
Absolutely.
But as an athlete, as a mover, as someone who has like the strength and balance and anticipation, and even when he's wrong, he can then, like you said, be right back in a stance, back on balance. That is like that. The guys like that, they're freaks to me. Like they're freak athletes, but they're not the bouncy vertical guys that we think of.
Yeah, he had a play the other day. I can't which game it was. He fell, like legitimately got tripped over a screen, fell, got back up, and then was able to sprint back and get into the ball. And he does things like that consistently.
When it comes to basketball, good is good, but don't you want the best? Don't you want your team to win a championship? Teams these days have continued to form super teams. James Harden teamed up with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in LA. Bradley Beal joined forces with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in Phoenix, but it wasn't enough. With both of these super teams now out of playoff contention and the Mavs finally getting past the Clippers, could it be Luka's time to make a real run at a championship this year? Or will one of the young upstart teams in the West slow him down? The Minnesota Timberwolves defense is world-class, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are playing great basketball on both sides of the ball. I can guarantee you, getting to the second round is not good enough for Luka. He wants a championship. So if you wouldn't settle for good in your basketball, why settle for it in your car? With BMW, you're not getting good, you're getting ultimate. You don't have to choose between speed and luxury. BMW is constantly raising standards for safety and innovation. Don't settle for good when you can have the ultimate. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. I'm so glad you used the word defensive basketball IQ with Jonathan, because I think a lot of us, I do it, I'm guilty of it. When we talk about basketball IQ, we talk about making reads offensively, and it's limited to that. What does defensive basketball IQ look like to you?
To me, it's the anticipation of what a guy is going to do, because you have a great feel for their moves, one, because you study, but the other side is knowing a guy's tendencies and his body movement. If a guy's, backing you down and it's a left left, right shoulder shake, you know he's coming back over that right shoulder. And so being able to anticipate that early on, or shot blockers have this great feel, knowing when to go get a shot. You know, a guy's coming down the lane, he's stepping through on a Euro step, and you can time it, right? Because you know he's got to get that shot up. And so I think he has a lot of that, knowing when and where to time it, but also just individually on isolations, one-on-one, a guy's got a handle, he's able to not bite on the move. He just sits down. It's the old school where eyes on the belly button, right? Like I'm watching that more than I'm watching the ball go back and forth.
That's really interesting. God, I wish I had more athleticism. I could have been a good defender, man.
Positional defender.
Hey, thanks, Jamal.
Just stay with the positional defender. There's quite a few of those.
I got two more questions on defense. Because I brought up that phrase earlier. What does it mean when I say, "What are you willing to live with"? What is that sort of phrasing and terminology? What does that mean to you as a coach when you're building out a game plan? What are you willing to live with? You're going against a great player. You're going against a great offense. What are you willing to live with? What does that mean as you strategize?
You're taking away whatever, as much as you can, their full strength. You know, if a guy's downhill can get to the rim, you're saying, I'm willing to live with this tough contested two because I took away the rim and he's a downhill guy. If it's a 3-point shooter, you know, you look at the Clay and the Steph and Dame, I'm getting to that outside hip and I'm forcing him inside the three because I want to take that strength away. If it's a non-shooter, right, I'm going to live with a 24% 3-point shooter getting a corner three up late contest because we're not going to allow him to get to the rim. And now we're in scramble mode for no reason. So you're willing to live with those things versus, okay, this guy, they're living on the rim, he's making his threes, and now we're just stuck. We're not taking anything away.
That makes sense. I think it was episode 2 I did with LeBron. We talked about some of the hardest actions to guard in the NBA. And look, I think all of this stuff is predicated on who's in the action.
Bingo.
Right. I can tell you, hey, guess what? Inverted pick and rolls are hard. And you're like, well, yeah, if it's Giannis and Dame, and Giannis is going downhill with a head of steam, and Dame's the guy setting the screen or the ghost screen, of course that's fucking hard to guard, right?
Yes.
But in general, the actions now, you're talking about the flow concepts and all that, but like, what do you think are the hardest actions to teach?
Mm-hmm.
And as I think even more important than that, what are the hardest actions for defenders to communicate the right way?
Rip screens. Those back screens are a problem, especially like you got Steph and Clay setting back screens for each other. Which one's going to the rim? Which one's coming off to the ball? The slip, all of those options are tough to communicate because if you have a bigger guard setting the back screen, all right, now what happens when he slips and he gets your seal? Now what do you do? And so just talking through those are tough, and everybody's running, you know, the delay action, which causes a rip screen. And if you have a big setting a pin down on the other side, you're trying to, what do I do on the curl? And so those are the toughest actions to guard. And it always goes back to me, guard the man with the ball. Don't sit all the way off. Pressure the heck out of the basketball so he can't make the decision. But those rip screens and the split game, those are some of the hardest actions to guard.
Yeah. There's a very common play on a side out of bounds where I'll use Miami Heat as an example. Bam's at the elbow. Duncan Robinson is on the ball side block. Jimmy Butler's taking it out.
Rip screen.
Duncan Robinson, if they switch, Jimmy's got a smaller defender on him now. Duncan Robinson can slip to a DHO. Let's say they reverse it and get into some like angled flex action. Well, Duncan Robinson can slip that rip screen and come off Bam for a catch and shoot. Yep. I actually think, and because I lived it, I actually think using shooters as screeners is one of, and there's so many different iterations you can use and mix and matching who he's screening for, where he's screening, how he's screening, the angle. Is he running up to a ghost screen with a downhill player? Like using shooters as screeners. I go back to the communication piece. it is so difficult to communicate all of the different ways you can use shooters as screeners.
Yeah. And think about it. You used to do it. You set the ball screen on the big, handling the ball.
Yeah.
As a shooter. Now what do? They show, and now all of a sudden you're slipping out, and next thing you know, you're getting a wide open three. And so that's on ball, but the off ball is just the same. And before I forget, I talk about our team for defensive purposes. Like, we have 2 and 3 elite guys. Like, Franz and Paolo have taken their game to that level of wanting to defend. That's where that's where you become better, because guys are willing and wanting to defend. And you, like Wendell Carter Jr., can guard multiple positions. So I can't go without saying that. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, and I think Dallas right now, I believe it's 18 games now. They're 16-2. They've got the number 1 defense in the NBA in that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
I called the game last night. I've watched a ton of games that they've played. I did my film study. Look, if you have Kyrie and Luka engaged on that end, okay, now Daniel Gafford
yes.
and Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ, like, now you get the positional size defenders who are really good already on that side of the ball. You can build a great defense. The engagement level from the stars, I think, is a big component in all this. It's hard. There's not many like true stars that are elite defensively. It's a big ask. It's a big ask but you need that engagement level.
You absolutely do. And they set the tone. They set the tone in so many ways because they understand how to. First of all, they understand offensively how to break teams down. So then they should know how to stop guys because they're doing it to teams.
Had a recent game with OKC and was talking with Dagnall about the culture building, and he said something really interesting to me in our group. I think I was with Jonesy. He said something interesting to us. He said, if you came in our practice facility tomorrow and felt the energy and the vibe and the culture we built versus 3 years ago when they won, I don't know, 20 games or 24 games, whatever it was, he said it'd be the same thing. You would see and feel the same thing. And that to me is like the biggest challenge in sports, because we know this, like, you're going to win in the NBA based on the level of talent you have, right? It's just a fact.
Yeah.
That's how basketball works. How do you go about building culture when you're losing, building a process, building the right habits, all of those things, not getting caught up in wins and losses, like measuring growth outside of the result?
The thing that comes to mind for us and our staff and who we've brought in is one, but it's continue to serve in every moment. Continue to serve and help these guys become their best. Because that's where it has to start. Like, they see that part of the process. Like, they're getting better. You can celebrate the small successes, but there's joy in every part of the game. And you got to know you're moving towards something. We were the same in wins and losses. We did the same amount, same work, same communication, same positivity. And it's not always easy, but you're building towards something, and you can see the vision of what you're building towards. Even when it's not right there in front of you. That's why the small successes are so important. But it's also, if you're every day uplifting people, it helps the environment and keeps the environment knowing, like, we're all in this together. And I mean, for us, it's top to bottom. Like, we're all in it together. And like, to the point of what we were saying earlier, you're representing not just yourself, you're representing the Orlando Magic, the organization, the city. Every time you step on the floor, that's what you're doing. That's what you communicate to all these guys.
Yeah. The vision part. So you guys, as of this recording, we're recording this on Thursday, the 11th. You're on the cusp of a playoff berth, right? Guaranteed top 6 spot. You're on the cusp of it.
Cusp.
All right. initially,
Mhm.
when you're talking about this vision that you're building towards, this growth that you're building towards, how do you communicate that to the group? You're taking over this job and you're probably not going to win a lot of games. You guys end up with Paulo the next year as a, number one pick. You get the number one pick. But how are you communicating that vision initially?
Having them understand the level of belief you have to have in who you are and what you're capable of doing, but also looking at teams that have gone through that process and know that they started somewhere, and you have to communicate that often. And that's where the small successes come in, right? Like look what we did in this game. We held it to this. We had this goal, and we did that. And so now they can see the small pieces start to add up and add up. And then that's when guys start to really feel they belong, because they're like, oh, we hung in with this team and we're only 19 years old. And so now, oh, okay, we're here. And now you can add to that more and more and more when they get that belief system, knowing what they're capable of doing.
Before I let you go, this has been great. It's just lovely
Appreciate
catching up and chatting with you. You're great at this. You're great at this.
It was really good. Thank you.
Before I let you go, I can't let you go without asking about my guy, Joe Ingles.
Oh,
what does it mean? Can you just describe what it means to have a guy like Joe within the group?
The positional defender, Joe?
No, the personality, Joe.
He is a great level of toughness for us. Like being able to be that vet that is not afraid of anybody, right? Like he's going to talk to everybody the exact same way. He can do it with experience. He can, and he can still play. And that's the one thing that, you have to make sure that when you bring a guy like that in, they can still go, and he can still go, and he's working and he's telling these guys exactly what needs to be done. But his personality, he's not backing down from anybody. He's going to tell you how he feels, tell you what he thinks. It's great to have him, because it's who he is, and he cares. He really cares.
Yeah. Yeah. Go get a playoff berth, man.
Like it. Thank you.
Go get a playoff berth. Appreciate the time. You're the best, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, Jay.
All right, and now we're joined by Minnesota Timberwolves' sixth man of the year, Naz Reid. Naz, thank you for joining us. Anybody who's followed the podcast for the last year and a half, 2 years, knows that we are big fans of Naz Reid. So we particularly appreciate you coming on in the middle of a playoff series. It's great to have you on, man.
Appreciate you having me.
Definitely want to talk Timberwolves and Nuggets. I want to talk a bunch about your team. Actually, I want to get your perspective on this, because I've seen some clips recently of you on different podcasts talking about your journey. And you were someone who was McDonald's All-American, highly rated high school prospect. You went undrafted. You spent time in the G League. To carve out an identity in the league, to embrace an identity. You were recently named sixth man of the year. You've toggled between starting at times, coming off the bench, if there's injuries. But just the process for you coming into the league, trying to carve out that identity, and then getting to the point you're at now where you've embraced it and you're just an important piece, a pivotal piece on a championship level team.
Yeah. It's definitely been a dope journey, and different than others, obviously. Like you said, I was McDonald's All-American, top 5, top 3, ranked. Kind of thought I pretty much had it all. Going into college, played a college season, went into the draft, was undrafted. I think that kind of helped me in many ways. I think it kind of had me shift my mindset to, I was always a top of the class, top of the dog. Now I had to, hunt and kind of had to figure out, a way to, show that I belong again. And I think that kind of helped me to just never give up, always stay with it and stick with it. And, obviously your opportunity and your chance will come now. I kind of tell the younger guys on our team now who, they don't really get a chance to play. Just, have that mindset just to stay even keel. You never know what could happen. Obviously everybody's watching at some point. So I think just, just stay focused and keep grinding.
How long did it take you to really come to this realization on like a personal level in terms of wrapping your head around these ups and downs?
I think actually, like right after the draft, like I was ready to go. Like I kind of knew, throughout midway through the draft, I'm like, all right, it might not happen. So kind of was training myself to like, all right, now it's time to have a shifted mindset to where, all right, now, like I said before, like you got to hunt now. You kind of got to show, why you belong in this league. So it definitely didn't take too much time or too much thinking because at the end of the day, like I said, I was never going to give up. I mean, obviously that, that dream of, walking the stage, being drafted wasn't going to happen, but I never gave up though.
I was also a McDonald's All-American, and I also had a good career at Duke, and I didn't go undrafted, but I was a lottery pick. And it's weird because it was almost in some ways, like the opposite reflection when I got drafted. It was one of the few times in my life where I felt like I had made it. And it's interesting. It in a way like took a little bit of edge off of me. And it took me getting punched in the mouth my first couple years in the league, really first season and a half, until I sort of started this process of what is my identity in the league? What can I be as a player? And it doesn't always happen overnight. I think what's interesting with you is you're doing this and you're still only 24 years old. You have this long journey ahead, and I hope no one out there puts a box on your career or your skill set, because you can do a bunch of interesting things, whether that's the jelly fan bullshit or shooting the three at a high clip. Just the development of shooting the basketball. It's obviously a necessity, and it's obviously an important part of modern NBA basketball. How did all of that development fit in to you figuring out your place on the Timberwolves specifically?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I kind of played the same role that I play now, whereas though like I was pretty much a four growing up. I never really was a center or five or something like that. So like I always was able to bring up the ball. I was always able to like, shoot the ball as well. So it kind of like the NBA kind of like, shifted that way in the perfect time for me as I was growing up. I mean, I used to work out with guards all the time. Like I never was really in the post. I always wanted to do what the guards what the guards were doing, stuff like that. So I always worked out with guards. I never really worked out with bigs that much until like maybe like my junior, senior year, to where I kind of understood that, kind of have to have both, moving forward. But like, yeah, like I always worked out with guards. So it's kind of like, as far as why I know, being able to dribble, pass, shoot the ball, and things like that. And kind of like I said, man, the way that the NBA is now, it's kind of like you kind of had that shift at the right time. So it just makes sense for me, and I'm able to like calculate some of those things. But I think I would say the transition as far as like guarding, switches and things like that, that was definitely different for me. I think I just had to get more acclimated and more comfortable with it, but I was able to do that as well. I kind of got me into the role that I am right now because we're a big team, so some at some moments you're gonna have to be able to guard a guard. So
when you were in high school, can you explain to the people in the audience who may not know the backstory of the Jelly Fam, and just like what the specific rules were, kind of how it meant to be, but then also to your point about playing like a guard, how that was different for a guy your size having to do this?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a group, like a decent sized group, about 8 of us. Some of them are pro overseas, some are still in college, so we're all still doing our thing. But like, yeah, like the specifics where you had to jelly 3 times in the game on somebody. So like, they were like obviously finesse layups or something like that, and had to be on somebody 3 times. It had to be made, and that someone had to see it, or it had to be recorded, or someone like that, or somewhat of that nature. But yeah, like I was big, but like I always wanted to do what I wasn't supposed to be doing, I guess, at that time. So Yeah, I used to work out with Javon Quinterly, Isaiah Washington, Leandre Washington. Like, I'm just working out with guards, just getting, Atiba Taylor. I'm just getting things that they used to do. I'm getting comfortable with it to where it kind of just became part of my game. And like I said, the transition at the time in the NBA was kind of going towards that way with, stretch bigs and then being able to shoot.
This year's Minnesota team, 3 seed in the West, over 55 wins, number 1 defense in the league. I was thinking about it today, and 2 things really stood out from the end of last season. We've mentioned this a bunch of times. Number of people within the Nuggets organization, players and whatnot, really felt like you guys were a difficult matchup. And, some of that, of course, was without you and without Jaden. The other thing that stands out was what happened, right? The end of last season in the last game, Kyle and Rudy having a conflict, Jaden deciding to punch the concrete wall and not the padded wall on the other side of the tunnel. But it feels like this group, and we were talking about this at lunch earlier today with one of your peers in the NBA, it feels like this group has a really special connection to each other, the camaraderie, the chemistry, the buy-in to roles, all of those things. How did that sort of play out over the last year, particularly when you make the Gobert trade? It's got to be new for everybody. How did this sort of development of chemistry and togetherness and cohesion develop over the last year?
Yeah, I think last year we kind of figured out and knew we could be special. We just kind of had to figure it out. I mean, everything's not perfect. We kind of had a rocky start. Like you said, you had a situation with Kyle and Rudy and Jaden. I broke my wrist. But I think we all came together at that summer. Like, I think we had a retreat or something like that. We came together and we kind of just, we had a bond and a friendship, and we kind of felt like it was moving towards a brotherhood. And then, everybody going into, their individual, that they had the World Cup and all that stuff. Everybody played extremely well. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. And I think once everybody got back, I think we actually gelled more that time than we had before we had that event. I think everybody kind of just knew going in that we all had one mission, we all had one goal. It was no individual accolades. We all got our money. We all it was nothing else to look forward to but a ring. So I think everybody kind of has that same mindset, and when you have that mindset, you kind of you gel. You kind of help your teammates figure out things that you might not thought you would be able to help them figure out with last year. Just so forth and so on. You're there for your teammates. We chill with each other outside of basketball. We're always together. So that's something that's huge for us. I mean, I think we always text, we always communicate. So I think that camaraderie right there, man, it speaks for itself. All of that matters. It just helps. It just makes things so much easier on the court.
What's it like being Ant's teammate right now?
It's a great question.
I mean, even growing up, it's he's always been this way. But 1, he was young, and 2, he kind of had to, grow, and obviously the publicity that he has now and stuff like that is a little bit more scoped on him. But he's always been like this, though. But it's great to be his teammate. He's a great leader. He's a young leader, and the thing is, he's super young, and he knows how to lead, and he knows how to communicate. He knows how to build his teammates. He's just a guy that you obviously want to have around. It speaks for itself.
There's a maturity. There's still a joyful and childlike nature to I think some of the shit talking and just fully being himself, which I find fascinating, because it's contrasted against this real maturity and leadership. Okay. In terms of the game itself, how have you seen him grow this year in terms of his game, and how has that matured?
I would say he's using all facets. Before, he would just go left to where you kind of would just be able to shit him right. He wouldn't want to go right. He's using all types of facets. His body, he's getting to the lane. He's finishing over guys, multiple guys. He's embracing double teams and things of that nature. He knows how to make that next pass or that right read. That's just things that I've seen to where like he wasn't purposely doing, obviously, but like he came from, you know, teams where it was around him. It's he has to score and that's what it is. But he's kind of built, you know, that identity to where he's trying to make the right read. Like you said, he's still young. To where he has, you know, those moments where he's completely himself, but nobody's perfect and he's still growing. Like he's only 22, so I think he has a lot more growing to do, and he will improve.
A lot of the joy stuff, the trash talking, a lot of that stuff has gone viral. I said the other day, and I sometimes I have to commentate on things, and I don't mean to speak for teams and players, but it's just observational, if that makes sense. Yours is experiential. And so I this is an important question for me just to know. I said it feels like the leadership piece goes beyond just talking to your teammates. The leadership piece goes beyond the work you put in. It feels like with Anthony, the leadership piece, his attitude, his fearlessness, you guys take that on as well, right? It's
Yeah.
Your team is a reflection of his attitude and approach to the game right now. Do you feel that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. And like the stuff that he says is just like it just builds your confidence as as his teammate. Like it's just like you can see like you make a shot, he's all in your face like with excitement. Like you miss a shot, he's still in your face with excitement. So I think for him it's just like he's just a confidence booster. And like you said, he's fearless and it makes you fearless. And you going at guys who are, you know, all-stars, top guys in the league. So it's just like the way he goes about his everyday, his swag or whatever the case may be, like it builds your confidence, and he's trying to get you to be better each and every way.
JJ loves the word sicko, NBA sickos. The way you guys play defense, people were talking about this with Nickeil the other night when he was laughing, picking up 94 feet. Was just like, it was like a sort of like a sicko defense. Do you guys feel like, you know, as you've taken this turn over the last couple of years, when you're defending and when you're really locked in defending, there's just a level of joy that feels maybe even different than your other sort of basketball experiences?
Yeah, 100%. It's like to get that stop is like, I honestly, like, I used to hate playing defense. Like now it's like, I embrace it. I like playing defense. I like to make the guy in front of me uncomfortable. I like to, I want him to feel my presence. I want him to know like I'm here. So like we all have that same edge and so forth. So, and I think that came from Rudy. Like, he talks about defense all the time. And that's kind of why he is defensive player of the year. So he kind of embraces that as well. And, he kind of shifts that down to us. And, like I said, I used to hate playing defense, but now it's just like really like something that I know you need to win. Like you need defense. That's our identity. So it's exciting, and you get a rush from getting that stop, or that clip where him and Jaden was in that trap, and that like stuff like that. Just you get a morale from.
I was doing Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye's podcast yesterday, and Channing described Nickeil and Jaden as Doberman pinchers. How would you describe Jaden and Nickeil on the defensive end?
The dogs, like those are two guys, like especially for Nickeil. Like Jaden, obviously, he's like one of the best defenders in the league, but like Nickeil, like that's kind of how he approached the game with a defensive mindset. Like I think for him, that's what that kind of carved out his role. To be able to stop that all-star guy on the other level, or on the other side, who's at another level. And I think he embraces that as well. I would say like if you have to deal with those two guys, I mean, I feel like you're in trouble. Like that's the feeling that we get. So now we're following suit. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like a domino effect.
Is there something with you? It's always interesting with guys who, obviously you're Sixth Man of the Year, so you're the ultimate example of this. But the prep for coming off the bench, and you've had to start some games and things like that because of injuries. When your approach when you're coming into the game for the first time, is that something that you just have had to learn over time? When you're even talking about your journey from being where you were in high school and college to going undrafted to where you are now?
Yeah. For me, like I kind of like So I take it. I'm trying to see how the game. I like it because I get to see how the game's going. I get to see. There's like a joke that I say with some of the bench guys that, it's kind of like we gotta. If the lead's up, we gotta kind of push the lead. If we're down, we kind of got to get the lead back. So we kind of have to have that same mentality regardless. But I get a chance to see how the game's going. I get to see how the refs calling the game. I just get a feel, and I'm able to, impact the game any way, shape, or form, whether it's scoring, rebounding, down on the floor, loose ball, steals, like whatever the case may be. So I get a chance to, analyze the game from that aspect.
Going into the fourth quarter of game one, what was your mindset? I think you had 2 going into the fourth and had 14 in the fourth.
Yeah. So I kind of explained to them, or even to Jaden, that's my man's for real. So I was explaining to him, like, I didn't feel like my impact was felt in the Suns game. So and then the first half of the Denver game. So like I just felt like I had to have some type of presence, and I feel like I wasn't doing enough. I mean, obviously I was scoring, and like you said, that in that game I only had 2 points, but in the first half. But I just felt like my impact wasn't there. Like I just wasn't doing enough, and it just something just clicked in me to where like, all right, like I need to really lock in and. If we want to win, if we're going to win, we need everybody. And I kind of just took on that challenge and, just said to myself, like, we're here. Like, that's where we're going to be. So, I mean, it makes no sense to not bring my all, whether at least, like, what I'm saying? At least if I'm messing up, at least I'm trying my hardest or whatever the case may be. So I just went out there and brought it.
I played different roles in my career, barely a rotation player, kind of a rotation player. I started for a number of years. I played 6-man for a number of years. Is there something about being the 6th man and the mentality behind it? And every guy is different. Every bench player is different. But there is something, at least how I approached it, was like an energy shift. It wasn't necessarily even about making shots, missing shots. Certainly I wanted to make my shots. But I think about a guy like TJ McConnell. He was another example of like when he checks in the game, there's an energy shift, right? If we're playing, when I was playing, if we're playing stagnant offense, I'm going to fucking run around. I'm just going to run around and create some energy, create some ball movement, and hopefully that affects our offense, right? I'm going to take a charge. There's something that's as simple as coming into the game with more energy than anyone else.
Right. And that's kind of how I view it, to just make a huge impact. That's kind of how, like I said, whether it's diving on the floor, cutting, rebounding, steals, guarding the best player. That's kind of how I view it as well. I mean, it was definitely a mindset shift for me once I got into this position because, like, growing up, obviously being McDonald's and so forth and so on, I had the ball in my hands. You know what I'm saying? So, definitely was a mindset shift, but it wasn't too hard to shift that mindset once I understood my role. But definitely, I think impact is key when you're in that role.
You mentioned this after game one of this series about Ant, particularly about his late game execution. But do you think that everybody knowing their role in terms of you guys, just improvement in that in general throughout the season and in the playoffs for sure, has been just what we're talking about everybody sort of knows what they're supposed to be doing and just kind of like executing within themselves?
Yep, 100%. And we get that confidence from, like we talked about before, Ant. Like, he's telling us, like, we can't win. Like, he's going to do him. Obviously, Cat's going to do him. But we can't win this game without everybody. And we need y'all to execute whatever, any type of fashion, anything you guys can do, impact and execute. You guys are the X factors. You guys are key. Like, a lot of stuff goes through you guys, and he instills that confidence in each and every one of us. So I think that's huge.
I'm really fascinated by this. I truly am. That a 22-year-old has embraced and taken on, and maybe it's natural, but it's just taken on that large of a leadership role where and it sounds so simple, Naz, but it's giving your teammates clarity of purpose, right?
Right.
It's Nickeil going into a game, this is what I have to do to help us to win. You going into a game, this is what I have to do to help us to win. Rudy, whoever it may be, that clarity of purpose, I mean, that is massive in the NBA. Yeah. It's obviously massive in the NBA playoffs as well.
Yeah.
And I want people listening and watching this to understand, I'm not saying that's rare, but that's certainly not on every team. And that's not even necessarily on every good team. That every player has clarity of purpose.
Like you said, like at 22 alone, like, you know what I'm saying? You have guys like Mike, you know, Rudy, who's they're in their 30s, but like he's at 22 and he's accepting, embracing, and knowing what it takes to, you know, get to that next level or to win. So it definitely is huge to, you know, have that. And watching, like I said, I've been watching this for 3-4 years now. So like just to see the way he's grown and each and every step is crazy.
I want to ask about Mike Conley for a second. Just what he's brought and just the difference. You know, obviously you guys have had a lot of success since he's been here, but has there been something in particular that you've taken from him or learned from him that you sort of appreciate the most?
Yeah, we call him our old man. It's definitely just to have fun with it. Like he's been playing for 18 years. So one thing he's preached is to have fun, no matter how tough the situation gets, just to have fun and be yourself. Like a lot of things get tough. A lot of people get in situations where they might, you know, think, oh, they can't do it or they don't have enough confidence to do it. They might boggle down, so forth and so on. But like the biggest lesson from him is just to have fun with this, because at the end of the day, this is your life. And once it's taken from you, you kind of got to figure out another life. So like just to always embrace and have fun with this. I think that's kind of how another way to where I have like gotten out of my thoughts to where I'm having a bad game or I can't shift it. Just, you know, just have fun, be cool, calm, collective, and play your game.
Now, as we're going to get the draft, because I don't want to ask too much about the Denver Nuggets because I don't want to provide any bulletin board material. I'm just kidding. Let's do the draft. Before we begin the draft, we want to give a shout out to New Era, the official cap of the NBA, and now the official headwear of OM3. Tommy's rocking a sweet Brooklyn cap right now. You can support your favorite team by wearing the same caps that the players do or show off your personal style with exclusive drops. Shop headwear and apparel and get 10% off when you go to neweracap.com and use code OLDMAN at checkout. That's 10% off your order using promo code OLDMAN. Some exclusions apply, and visit neweracap.com/OM3 if you want to see our favorites. All right, the Old Man of the Three draft. Tommy, what is the draft topic for today?
In honor of the great Minnesota fan base and Naz Reid Beach Towel Night, and we should shout out them and their love affair with you. We thought that we would draft just beach accessories, period. So any beach accessory, Naz, you pick first, and then I go, then JJ goes, then we snake it back. And obviously, once you pick it, we can't pick the thing. So you're number one.
All right. Say like towel.
Not a specific towel, maybe?
Yeah. Like
very utilitarian. Very utilitarian. I mean, you can't go wrong with a towel. You actually do need a towel when you go to the beach.
You need a towel.
The Naz Reid towel is the number one overall pick is very fitting. All right, I'm going number one. I'm going flip-flops because you can't have anything that's going to ruin any other shoe. So you need flip-flops.
Interesting. Very interesting. You don't ever wear like boat shoes,
nope.
Slip-ons?
Nope. Not on sand. Pool, whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say this flip-flops are nothing. Like that's how I'm going with.
Okay. All right. It's aggressive for a first pick. I'm gonna go with a cooler. It's my first pick. Because you need snacks and beverages. And my second pick, my second round pick, I'm gonna go with I don't know how to do this. So I'm just going to say a fire starting kit.
Wow. For the beach?
You've never done a fucking bonfire on the beach as the sun is setting? Oh my God.
For your second pick?
There's nothing better
a fire every
than a
time.
fire on the beach.
But Naz and I are just going to the beach on like a normal day. We're not going and starting a bonfire on the. That is a reach.
You're crazy.
Fire start. Nah, that was a gift from the gods for us. He's
a bonfire on the beach. It's the best thing to do at the.
It's just
a
not a
bonfire
common
on
thing.
the beach is better than getting in the ocean.
But a bonfire on the beach you do like once a summer, maybe. Like it just is not a common thing for the beach. He's never done it. He grew up in Jersey on the beach and he's never done it one time.
I've never done it.
You've never done a bonfire on the beach?
Never, dude.
Oh my
This summer, that's
What
the championship. We're gonna do a bomb. We're gonna throw you a bonfire.
Richie, what is happening here?
All right, I'm just gonna move on from that. I think my second pick, I can't believe that this is here rather than a fire starting kit, is sunglasses.
I was about to say that one. I was about to say sunglasses.
Now you get two.
It's not an umbrella, but I'm trying to think of what it's called. There's a cover.
The pop-up tents.
Yeah. That, I was gonna say that. So you
The pop-up tents. Yeah.
You get a little shade.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good pick.
And then obviously you need some shorts.
Took us long. Took to the third round to get bathing suit.
I think you need some shorts. I mean,
all right, that's a good pick. You're in a. Giannis is probably gonna win. You're in a good spot. I'm going sunscreen.
It's so practical. You guys are just so practical. This is
We're trying to win.
unbelievable.
We're trying to win, and JJ's trying to throw the Project X party on the beach.
It's inherent. If you go to the beach, you need shorts.
All
and
right, let's see. He's got
flip-flops
two picks now.
and
Let's see.
sunscreen.
Let's see where he's gonna go with this now.
Oh my God! I'm gonna go with a football.
oh yeah, I can see that.
Good pick.
And then I won't name any brands just because I don't want to offend any past or future sponsors. But I would just say a portable speaker.
Okay.
Yep. Bluetooth
That's
speaker.
spot
Good pick.
Yep.
Very necessary.
Yep.
Nerf football or regular football?
It's windy at the beach. I'm definitely going regular football.
Regular football.
Yep.
Okay, I like it. All right. My fourth pick, I'm gonna go with beer.
Oh my God.
Just beer. That's it. No brands, no context, just beer. Just need a beer at the beach.
I'm gonna go with.
You got two.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm gonna say money. When you go to the boardwalk, you might need to get some price of pizza. You might go in your your little wallet or your bag.
Money is Money's the best pick of the whole draft.
Guys, again, like I'm not saying it was the greatest pick in the world. I brought the cooler. Okay, in the cooler is beer, food, snacks, bottled water, Capri Suns, every fucking thing you could ever want.
But we don't want
in the cooler.
But we don't want all that. I just want beer, and he just wants a corn dog at the boardwalk. We don't want all the other shit.
I'll just say surfboard.
All right.
Good one. Solid draft.
Solid draft.
We got money.
Sure.
Got money in the
We've got
fourth
money
round.
in this one.
All right, last one. I think I'm gonna go water bottle so I don't get dehydrated after drinking my beer.
Richie, I can't with this guy today. I can't with this guy today. Oh
Nah,
my
that's
God. Guys.
You're a professional athlete. You got to hydrate, right?
Oh man.
That's a fact.
Nas and I are on the same wavelength.
I'm having a much better time at the beach. I'm just letting you know.
JJ's going crazy. We're just chilling. This is
unbelievable.
There's levels to it, I guess.
Oh God.
Right,
I've got music playing. I've got people playing football. We're stacking up the firewood for a bonfire. I've got a cooler full of beer.
All right, close it. Close it. What's the fifth pick? This is gonna be something crazy. This is gonna.
No, this is not. I'm actually gonna go specific on this one too. I'm gonna go with an Aviator Nation zip up hoodie. Not a sponsor, but the greatest beach hoodie ever. Because when it gets cool at night, as it often does on Long Island, and the fire's going, and you're having a cold one, maybe you want to put a hoodie on. Sun's down.
I can visualize that now. I can see that now.
Hoodie is a good pick.
Now-
Hoodie's a good pick. You need a.
I feel like
you need a hoodie.
Nas wants to come to the Hamptons this summer and hang out with us. That's all I'm saying.
I think that
I'm with it.
I just think it's funny that we just go generic, then Aviator Nation zip up hoodie. I like it.
Man.
I like it.
Nas, I am praying to God that at some point before the NBA Finals, I get to call one of your guys' playoff games. If not, I hopefully will see you soon. And best of luck in the rest of the playoffs, bud.
Good luck, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate you having me.